Mike Sempervive here with you for the next hour talking about professional wrestling, which is something we do every single day here on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Tune in, iHeart, American Forces Radio, sportsbyline.com, all of our over-the-air affiliates, podcaster, and maybe you're watching on video through Twitch or YouTube. However you're joining us today, just like to say thank you. Hopefully wherever you are, it's sunny outside. If not, hopefully it's sunny inside your mind. A hot, sunny day here on my portion of Delmarva. No Bryan Alvarez because it's Friday. So joining me today is Filthy Tom Lawler, and as always, we have a lot to talk about. And I got to see how Filthy is going to book the future run of Shane McMahon in AEW. But before we get to that, I got to bring him in right now because the passing of Taylor Tooley at the age of 56 years old, UFC 1's very first fight, Tom.
Yes, the very first fighter to step foot in the octagon, billed at 6'2", 420 pounds, hailing from Hawaii. In his pre-fight interview, this fighter who had made his way to Japan after a troubled youth, he made his way to Japan as a sumo wrestler. He let us know that despite his size, his strongest muscle was his heart, and that was going to carry him to be the champion of the very first UFC. Unfortunately, he faced one of the consensus biggest pricks in combat sports history, Gerard Gordeau, and as he rushed forward, Gordeau avoided him, landed some punches, Tooley fell, and Gerard soccer kicked him in the face, sent his tooth into the crowd, and the fight was stopped. But it's a sad, sad day for me. One of my heroes, I can say this, one of my heroes, one of the very first men, a pioneer of mixed martial arts, is gone. Taylor Tooley, Taylor Willie, R.I.P.
We're going to get into more of his career later on. Lived a very interesting life, but as I mentioned, got a lot to get into today. WWE reportedly inking a deal with the city of Indianapolis and the state of Indiana that's going to be very lucrative. SmackDown tonight, and AEW Dynamite's raiding craters. We'll be back. Wrestling Observer Live.
There's 1, 2. Now he's got Bryan Alvarez. He whips him into the corner hard. Adam Firestorm following up, catches a boot to the face. Bryan Alvarez with another hard shot to the head. 1, 2. This is the most aggressive I've seen Bryan Alvarez today here in Portland Wrestling. Now he's got his knee across the throat. He's choking him, LC.
Well, it's like this week Alvarez has something to prove, brother. Something to prove to his sweet little lady over there.
Of course, Adam Firestorm with a big win over Black Dragon last week. Looking for another one here. There's a sunset flip. Is he going to go down? Yes, he is. Over he goes. 1, 2, 3. It is all over. Adam Firestorm with the victory over beautiful Bryan Alvarez here in Portland Wrestling. Now out Bryan Alvarez firing away with a boot. Action continues after the bell. Goes for the back body drop. No! Face first plant by Adam Firestorm. Your winner once, looks like he'll be your winner twice. Action continues. There's a whip into the far corner. Adam Firestorm follows with a spinning kick. LC, I think Bryan Alvarez has bit off more than he could chew tonight. Miss Rentone really disgusted over in the corner. Adam Firestorm not done. There's a lion sold on top. He hooks him again. 1, 2. 2.5. I thought we had a 3 count earlier in this match, LC. I was wrong. I'm sorry.
I can't believe it. I thought Youth Gone Wild was just adding a little salt to the wound. I thought Alvarez was Alvarez and a 2-time loser, brother.
Well, Mark Watson's hand must have stopped just short of the 3 count. And these eyes of mine need glasses because I thought I saw a 3 count Bryan Alvarez going up top.
Oh, we'll forget about your cataracts, brother. Up and over he goes.
Nobody home. Adam Firestorm back in control, playing a bit of possum. He's climbing up top. Is Rento and Otto really upset? There he goes. Swamp
oh, and that one hit.
There's a hook leg. 1, 2, 3. Now it's all over.
A 2-time loser. And does the LC have to look after Miss Rento and Otto tonight, baby?
There's Adam Firestorm, your winner in this match. Once, twice, 3 times, it didn't matter. Bryan Alvarez not up to it. Miss Rento and Otto absolutely disgusted with it. Mark Watson explaining to him it was a 3 count this time. No hook the leg. Fair and square, Adam Firestone, your winner here on Portland Wrestling. Fans will be right back with after a message from our sponsors.
Back to the show, Mike Sempervive and Filthy Tom Lawler here with you. We do this show right here for an hour at a time every single day, but if you want us 24/7, you can try to find us on Twitter/X. I am at Sempervive. Tom is at Filthy Tom Lawler. The website is at WONF4W, and the broadcaster is at Sports Byline USA. Jim Valley is here with you on Saturday, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And on Sunday, Andrew Zarian joins you beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'd also love it if you made the wrestling news part of your day. You can find it wherever you download your favorite podcasts, or head on over to thewrestlingnews.com or at Wrestling News AV on X and Facebook every single day of the year. It's everything you need to know to get your day started, get you up to date, or get you to your favorite long-form review pod like Wrestling Observer Radio. Dave Meltzer will be back for subscribers later on this evening with Garrett Gonzalez for Wrestling Observer Radio, talking all about this week's newsletter and everything taking place around the world of wrestling, and of course about Taylor Tully as well too, and we're going to get back into him a little bit later on in the show. But a big deal for WWE. This was first reported yesterday by WrestleVotes that the city of Indianapolis is on the verge of signing a major multi-event deal with WWE that would bring a slew of major events into the state, including WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble. Indianapolis Business Journal confirmed that WWE is close to an agreement, saying it is a 7-year agreement that will benefit the entire state. Initially yesterday, it was rumored to be a 5-year deal. Regardless of the length, the city of Indianapolis is expected to receive multiple PLEs. I feel confident in saying, from some things that I heard, that the deal will include at least one WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series over those years, and of course the television and NXT events that surround those weekends. IBJ is also reporting that WrestleMania and next year's Royal Rumble, which would take place on February 1st, will take place on February 1st. IBJ also reports the deal calls for house shows at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, as well as markets like Fort Wayne and Evansville, which will host Monday Night Raw this coming September 30th. Financial terms of the deal have not been disclosed, but IBJ sources said that the state's sports tourism agency, the Indiana Sport Corporation, is tapping into the state's $5 million tourism bid fund to sweeten the deal. That fund was created in 2022 and received its first funding allocation as part of the state's 2023 to 25 biennial budget as part of an effort to lure more big events, including WrestleMania, into the state. The announcement of the deal is expected to occur this coming Monday morning in Indianapolis, where Monday Night Raw will be held. It is a big commitment from the state of Indiana to WWE, no doubt. It is going to be a big windfall for WWE and TKO. It guarantees large-scale events every single year for the state of Indiana. And very interestingly, it's great to have a Rolodex. It is great to keep connections because Patrick Talty has served as the president of the Indiana Sport Corporation since July of 2022, and that corporation's mission is to lure and organize events in the state, like he did with the 2021 NCAA men's basketball tournament in Indianapolis. Past employment of Talty saw him work as the general manager of U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, during which a Super Bowl and Final Four were held, as well as working for WWE as the senior vice president of live events. So, a very obviously the state of Indiana looking to drum up business, Tom, looking to bring events into the state. They had a nice direct connection with Patrick Talty here, with the who serves as the president of the Indiana Sport Corporation, and this is obviously great for fans in that area. I would say if you are east of Kansas City and north of like Dallas, like it is a pretty easy location to get into. Indianapolis is. They have not had a WrestleMania since way back at WrestleMania 7, which was at the Hoosier Dome back then, the which should have been Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, but ended up not working itself out to be that way. But a big deal and probably a huge amount of money for WWE.
Yeah, there are no lack of wrestling fans in that area of the United States. You would be drawing on, you mentioned Kansas, right? You'd be drawing on fans from Illinois and Chicago.
Easy
no
shot
doubt
into
that would make
O'Hare
the drive
Airport
over.
straight down. Yeah.
You know, I don't know how far away Cleveland and those cities are, but I mean, you could probably realistically stretch as far as there to get people to drive over, if not further. You're going to be making the drive, Mike? How far away from Delmarva is Indianapolis?
That is a long drive. It takes me, God, I'm trying to think of how long it takes me to get to Roanoke to go see Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant. That was like a 4.5-hour trip. It may have been even a little bit longer than that, down deep into past Roanoke down there. So it would take me a while, but it would also be a relatively straight drive. And I think that's the biggest benefit is if you're in Toronto or Detroit or Chicago or Kansas City or Louisville, Pittsburgh, you know, you can really, it's very easy to get into there. So it's a hell of a commitment. I mean, 7 years is a hell of a commitment to make. But, you know, this is where WWE is going. A lot of people were wondering, okay, you made all these TV deals. What are they doing? Well, we saw it at WrestleMania with all of the new advertising that they were getting in, using the mat, putting stuff around the ring. And they haven't really utilized that since WrestleMania. But this is another way they're doing it by completely changing the way that they're dealing with these cities.
Yeah, and I am kind of, I guess, surprised to see this as a WWE deal, not a TKO deal, because you would think that Indianapolis would also love to have a UFC event. There's also no lack of fight fans in that area of the Midwest. There's no lack of wrestling fans, amateur wrestling fans in those areas.
Hallelujah
so,
to that.
I mean, you could throw in a fight night. You could have a big-time UFC pay-per-view event take place in the arena in Indianapolis. I'm surprised that it wasn't, you know, a dual situation, a dual setup. Synergy.
Hey, and maybe there's a reason it's not. Maybe they got another separate deal in their holster that they're going to want to pull out a little bit later on.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned something that will make me jump off course here, so sorry, everybody. But NIL deals are obviously affecting men's college basketball and, of course, men's college football. Could we possibly see the influx of money into amateur wrestling by those people that are big fans of amateur wrestling and who help fund programs like Penn State, Iowa, Minnesota, and so many others? Could we see a situation where somebody could get involved in wrestling in that way, maybe because they're tired of seeing Penn State and Cale Sanderson win every year? Could we see that? And could we then would that open the door, in your opinion, for the possibility of a TKO to get involved in the NCAA in that way?
UFC Fight Pass, I know it's not like, you know, directly dealing with them, I don't think, but UFC Fight Pass has shown NCAA wrestling over the past few years. They have dipped their foot into that a little bit. The WWE has no shortage of amateur wrestlers under NIL deals as well, from what I understand. I think Mason Paris, perhaps,
yes.
AJ Ferrari.
I don't know if that one's still active anymore.
Well, I'm sure there's a number of others that I'm missing out on. And what you're talking about, Mike, unfortunately, the first thought I had in my head when you started talking like that was a situation like we had with Foxcatcher. You know, you start getting people with a ton of money, some weirdos trying to take control of amateur wrestling once again. We've seen how that turned out, and it didn't turn out too well.
No weirdos, no 69 gods. We got a lot more to get into when we get back. Wrestling Observer Live.
It's a great question. Definitely, I think in the Hangman Page matches, that's when Swerve, I think, during his rivalry with Hangman Page, stepped up another level. I mean, I've thought for a long time Swerve's really, really interesting. You know, in Casino Battle Royale in 22 and the Royal Rampage in 22, Swerve really, not long after he arrived in AEW, started making a splash, throwing out some of the biggest names in AEW, swerving people in Casino Battle Royale 22, swerving people in the Royal Rampage, and then getting involved with his own tag team partner and kind of a rivalry, and then becoming a world champion as a tag team star, and then breaking out in a singles rivalry. He just kept stepping up further and further and further. But I definitely think the biggest leap was during his rivalry with Hangman Page, and I think that's one of the best rivalries ever in AEW, Swerve versus Hangman. And tonight, I think it, you know, he cemented his legacy, became the world champion officially, but certainly in recent months, I think Swerve and Samoa Joe has become this incredible rivalry. And it really, in recent weeks, I thought they had one of the best contract signing segments I've ever seen. And there's been so many contract signings in wrestling. We've seen so many. And I think for me, Swerve and Samoa Joe will go down as one of the best. And also, really, on Dynamite, went off with an amazing moment with that Swerve stomp on the pile and then the Muscle Buster. And they went into the pay-per-view on such a high note and then had an amazing match in the main event and left the pay-per-view on an amazing high note. It's been a really great week for the company in so many ways. And I think really, definitely Swerve has stepped up. But if the moment I think he took that leap is when you beat a former world champion like Hangman Page in iconic rivalry. I think that, you know, really cemented him to me. MJF, one of the biggest stars in AEW. We haven't seen him in recent months. And I would love to get MJF back here soon, sooner than later, like really soon. We would, you know, we've got so many great things happening, and I think that would be really additive. He's one of our great wrestlers, and we've had great things happening in AEW lately. You know, a lot of great milestones just in the last really couple months. I mean, to go from Revolution, one of the best shows top to bottom, great matches, like we listed out all the great matches, and to hit the button of Sting's retirement, maybe one of the greatest send-offs ever. I think the greatest send-off ever. And then have Jon Moxley win the IWGP World Championship, coming to Jacksonville this week to defend it against Powerhouse Hobbs. And then have Dynasty be such a huge home run. Everything's going so great for AEW right now. I think that would be something that would add a lot. That'd be awesome to have MJF back, and soon. I would love that.
Sempervive and Filthy Tom Lawler here with you, Wrestling Observer Live. Okay, this was not going to be a story this high up on the roster, but then the number came in. So we're going to do the television ratings, and we're going to take them in order. Tuesday's NXT was up slightly overall, drew 724,000 people. up 6,000 viewers. But in the 18 to 49-year-old department, the show really rebounded, drawing a .26, up from a .22. That was the best the show had done since last November. The .26 this week equaled about 341,000 viewers, up 60,000. NXT was going head-to-head with Game 5 of the NHL Stanley Cup Final, which topped all of TV with a 1.13 rating in 18 to 49 and averaged 4.15 million viewers. That moves us to Wednesday, where AEW Dynamite was down a quarter of its audience from the week before, averaging 502,000 viewers. It is the lowest the show has ever drawn on a Wednesday night, the lowest the show has ever drawn without competition from the NBA. And even if you include that competition, it is the third lowest total in the history of the show. Up on the front page of the site, Paul Fontaine notes that Dynamite finished third on cable with a .16 rating in the 18 to 49-year-old demo, down 30.4% from last week, the lowest number in the history of the show. What was on at the time? Well, there was the College World Series on ESPN, the U.S. Olympic trials on NBC, and I'm going to give Filthy what he wants because I got to be honest, I was watching Kendrick Lamar's Ken and Friends pop-out concert on Amazon Prime. Filthy, were you getting it down with Tyler, the Creator, and the tribute to Nip and Mustard set and Ken popping out there with all of his friends there in Inglewood, California?
Mike, I was praying you were going to give me what I wanted, and it wasn't the Kendrick Lamar 5 straight diss tracks in a row.
Oh, there were plenty more than that. He just did not like us 5 times.
Where are the WNBA ratings?
The WNBA ratings, you think?
I'm telling you. That's what's been causing havoc for weeks and weeks. And I got a question about these NXT ratings as well.
Yes.
The demo went up with no Sexy Red.
Maybe everybody heard and they believe in Joe Hendry.
Maybe everybody saw the video like a year ago, and, maybe they want to see no Mo.
I think they want to see Trick Williams. That's part of it. For anything else the show has, when Sexy Red, those segments, as Brian likes to point out, were not the highest rated on that show. It was the stuff with Trick Williams and, the 25-man Battle Royal. I'm sure there were people that were tuning in to see who would come over from TNA? Who would those people be? And if anybody out there didn't see, one of them was Joe Hendry, the other one was Kazarian, who was there in that match. So I don't know. It was down a couple of weeks ago, and I was surprised by that. Last week it was down 50,000 people, and it was like, well, what's the reason for this? After a good show the week prior, but just one of those things. But obviously, whatever they got going on, it worked for the demo.
I would love to see a breakdown, please, in the Observer, Dave Meltzer. Give me a breakdown of the ratings draws between Sexy Red and Ollie J, the GOAT.
Oh, my God. So, do you have any thoughts on...
How long before they bring in the Hawk Tua girl, Mike?
Well, look, we're going to get to somebody that AEW could bring in and make a big difference in the ratings, but do you have any thoughts about the number being what it was on Wednesday night, being only 502,000? And again, this was reported by Programming Insider, I believe was the source of this, so it is a legitimate source. It's not one of somebody getting fed information by WWE or something like that. And WrestleNomics Brandon Thurston went and backed that up, and it's on the front page of the site as well too. So this looks like it's the number here. And the crazy part is the stuff Destination Unknown, I believe it was on Nat Geo or whatever it was, like the competition did not seem stiff enough to cause this type of pain in both categories.
Well, if I want to give AEW the benefit of the doubt, it is summer, right? So
absolutely, federal holiday.
I mean, that's that's always going to be, a hit
but
to
it
the
was summer
ratings a
last
little
year
bit there.
too.
Forbidden Door. Doesn't this happen every Forbidden Door season? Everybody goes, oh, the ratings are going to be terrible. The pay-per-view's not going to draw. And then the ratings suffer and the pay-per-view does just fine. So we'll see how the pay-per-view does this weekend. If that pay-per-view is down a large number, that's when I would really, really be concerned. Although, everybody talks about television being down, but if you're Warner Brothers or WBD and you are in what seems to be dire straits in a lot of ways when it comes to how the analysts and pundits look at your future as a company, then you've got to be worried.
Plus is worse than you. They got problems over there.
Yeah, and things don't sound too optimistic. So that's another issue in and of itself, I would imagine. They're in this TV rights deal, era where they're trying to get a raise, I guess, to also then raise the profile of the company. But I just the angle up top, isn't working for the people. I hate to say it, but I think people do not want to see a battle for control between Tony Khan and the Young Bucks up on top. I think it's too much WWE from 2005 until 2021, and I think that is what AEW did such a good job of at first, was not being that company, was not being what people were sick of in the WWE. And while they've still obviously maintained great wrestling up and down throughout the card, I think that an angle like that isn't doing a great service to them.
But doesn't an angle like that also need clearly defined lines that you need to color in? Jack Perry gets lit on fire. He comes back and makes the pin. Tony Khan is afraid for his life, and these things happen to him. There's so much that's so all over the place, whereas at least with WWE, there was the one unifying factor of the McMahon family, and they were the ones that you hated, and everybody else was fighting or dealing with that, where here it just seems like a free-for-all a lot when it comes to that storyline. And I also think as well, too, again, things need time to develop and breathe and all that sort of stuff. I don't think people are as big on the learning tree as Bryan is in that angle. Obviously, as you mentioned, it's Forbidden Door season, and for a lot of wrestling fans, they just don't care about the fact that we're getting a bunch of New Japan and CMLL and Stardom wrestlers in, even if there are some of us who like this sort of stuff.
Well, Mike, if you take a look,
MJF and Heshachero, I think, is a great example. There are going to be people, and have been people already, saying, why are you even doing this match? Do the Roosh match. Okay, fine. That's cool, but why are you doing Heshachero with MJF? As good as Heshachero is as a wrestler, why would you do that match?
At least he's been around. I mean, there's a whole number of guys. Where's Naito been? He's got a title match. Right?
Yeah,
one of the issues now that you find with Forbidden Door is AEW has a lot of the old New Japan guys on their roster, and there isn't a clear definition between the two of them. Rocky Romero works for both companies. You know what I mean? So
and I think
that, and you have a lot of crossover throughout the year as well.
Well, and the thing is, I think for a lot of New Japan fans, too, like, you've taken a lot of people, and we got the young guys who are probably going to come over, if they come over at all, and lose, because that's part of their story. And it's, I think, can you see, because, again, I don't know, maybe I'm too cynical about it, but I can see a New Japan fan, at least some, feeling that way. We can see all these guys anyway, and, hell, they're on half of our cards.
Mike, what is the top faction, the top heel faction in New Japan? Can you answer that for me?
House of Torture, by default. House of Torture.
House of Torture, Bullet Club War Dogs, right? Where have they been? Well, it doesn't matter. Neither one of them's been on AEW Forbidden Door television. All of a sudden, we're going to have Gabe Kidd and Finley, I think, on Rampage, but the pay-per-view's this Sunday. You know what I mean? They should have been featured more because they are a New Japan act. The Bullet Club is a New Japan act. We don't even have Bullet Club Gold anymore. It's now the Bang Bang Gang. The Bullet Club is a New Japan act. They have been nowhere to be found. We don't have Cobb and Oka coming over as United Empire. There's a number of guys just teaming with other people. TMDK was teaming with Leo Rush and Rocky. You've got Zach teaming with, I don't even know who he was teaming with, but he was in an all-star match. You could have had 4 guys from TMDK, 5, 6. You could have had however many there are. Probably guys that are not even in New Japan. You could have had them on Collision and had some sort of separation, but it hasn't happened. So
Gabe Kidd cuts a pretty good promo. Clark Connors kind of knows what to do in front of the camera when it's put there.
Clark Connors got over big time. If you remember a few years ago in Forbidden Door in that 4-way, he was spearing people out of their boots. Speared Miro right out of his boots, if I remember correctly.
And in theory, David Finlay is the top foreigner in the top heel group in that promotion, and you don't hear about him much over there, let alone hearing about him much here. I don't know. I shrug my shoulders. Usually, no matter what, this pay-per-view is going to draw because all AEW pay-per-views draw. Now, Forbidden Door draws a little less than most of them, but I'm really interested to see once the final tallies come out and Dave Meltzer and Brandon Thurston and all the folks report them, what this number ends up really being. We'll be back. Wrestling Observer Live.
We've almost reached the pinnacle of the tour, but this is one of the most important things. This is the computer. This is the workstation where I do the majority of the actual physical part of putting Figure 4 together. I do the writing here, the editing here, of course the phone calls, even the microphone here when we used to do Wrestling Observer Live, which has since died. And in fact, I better put the screensaver on here so this doesn't get burned in the screen. But putting the newsletter together, people understand, it's a lot of hard work and dedication, like 2 to 3 hours per week sometimes I have to spend on it. And, hold on a second. Figure 4, who's this? Carl Thorillo? Yeah. Yeah, hey, listen, can I call you back? I'm doing something here right now. My fridge? Yes, running. Hello? Anyway, this is, like I said, computer. Got the TV here. This is pretty much the place. This is going to be a quick tour of the trophy room. This is actually my trophy case. It's made of mahogany, very expensive. But what is worth far more than the case itself is what is inside, and that is the medals from the various sports and the accomplishments that I've achieved during my lifetime. This first drawer here is my gymnastics medals. Here, I got state and such. These are my Taekwondo medals. These down here, amateur wrestling medals. And down here are the 26 medals that I won in the 5-kilometer walk down to the Bothell Landing over the course of the past 5 years. And, you know, I realize that I'm a 4-sport superstar right here, and some people, you know, it might bother them that they haven't had such achievements in their life, but I think that the whole point is that you can achieve anything. You know, if you can make a great pie, you can win the pie eating contest at the Puyallup Fair, and I don't know, hell, if you can eat a good pie, you might win the pie eating contest as well. So there's achievement in this life for everybody.
Show. Mike Sempervive, Filthy Tom Lawler here, Wrestling Observer Live. Papoose playing us in. Filthy. AEW, obviously, going through a time right now when it comes to its ratings, when you Dynamite, but the answer is right there. I'm just going to read this right off the front page of WrestlingObserver.com. Amid rumors that surfaced this week that former WWE employee and occasional wrestler Shane McMahon had thrown out feelers about coming to AEW, that is apparently news to the owner of the company. In a quote given to Dave Meltzer for the newsletter this week, AEW head Tony Khan said, "I've never met him or talked to him in my life." On an episode of Grilling JR this week, Conrad Thompson and Jim Ross followed up on a conversation they had the previous week about the possibility of McMahon, son of Vince McMahon, coming to AEW. Thompson said a mutual friend of he and Ross texted him out of the blue to say the idea was not as crazy as some might think, and that McMahon had reached out to AEW wrestlers to hypothetically discuss the idea. Meltzer reported that some higher-ups on both sides of the food chain have assumed to mean both WWE and AEW said they've heard nothing close to the rumors, while others he spoke with said they have heard nothing other than what Thompson said. Meltzer said another person mentioned to him in a conversation about McMahon and an ex-WWE wrestler currently in AEW. McMahon and the wrestler were chatting about the attention it would get if he came out on Dynamite. However, the conversation was not a pitch for that to happen. Obviously, the last time that Shane O'Mac was in a wrestling ring, it was that magical moment at WrestleMania 39 where he came out for a match with The Miz and tore his quad. And Snoop Dogg had to save the day for everybody involved. It would get attention now, wouldn't it?
What an all-time great wrestling moment. I may have to go back and watch that after this show. Anything that could have gone wrong went wrong, except for the fact that the one guy who was probably the highest out of anybody in the whole arena was able to pull it together and salvage something out of that segment. Just absolutely tremendous. Shane McMahon, for better or worse, will always be known as son of Vince McMahon. It doesn't matter if he buys WCW. It doesn't matter if he survives a crash into the Hudson or Potomac River or whatever it was and make it out alive. What was a helicopter crash he went
Something
down
like
in?
that, yeah.
And they interview him. Son of Vince McMahon. What about all the things Shane McMahon's done? He's been a champion. He was the owner of WCW, trained in Muay Thai. One of the, what was it? The green. What was his team? The Mean Street Posse. One of the Mean Street, the leader of the Mean Street Posse. I don't know what I was even going to call them. I selfishly. Hell,
did he not try to bring video on demand to China?
Out, hey, he did. What if we find out that Shane McMahon's been the one pulling the strings for the Young Bucks? Maybe that could be the thing that turns it around.
It would for the Young Bucks, or he needs
Okada.
Well, look, he needs Tony needs somebody to step in. I mean, there are all sorts of ways he could work into that storyline, and of course, the storyline with Christian where he comes up to him and goes, "You've really never had a father."
Was this whole segment a setup for that?
No, but it's right. This is ridiculous. I don't think it will. You know what? I take it back. I don't know how it's ridiculous, but to say it'll never happen, why? There's no reason to say it'll never happen. I will assume that Shane McMahon will outlive his father, and if AEW is around 20 more years, I'm sure in the next 2 decades, maybe Vince McMahon makes a cameo walking through or something like that, but I think you would just be begging for it in multiple ways if you were to bring Shane McMahon in to be a character. This is not WWE bringing in
what do you get? You can't
Eric
listen.
Bischoff. I don't think
he's a character no matter what. If you bring him in or not, so
that's true. Absolutely entertaining guy, but I don't know. No,
well, honestly, if you were going purely based on entertainment factor, one of the best ever.
Well, look, he's
entertaining. There's no doubt.
Yes.
Tries as hard as he can. There's no doubt about that either. He is the best in the world, if you remember. He won the tournament to crown the best wrestler in the world that was put on by WWE.
Oh, my. WWE. SmackDown is tonight in Rosemont, Illinois. Talk about a place that's perfectly convenient if you're coming from O'Hare Airport, just right there. Allstate Arena. Money in the Bank qualifying triple threat matches. Kevin Owens against Andrade against Grayson Waller. There's another one with Randy Orton against Tama Tonga against Carmelo Hayes. A segment between LA Knight and United States champion Logan Paul has been added. Universal champion Cody Rhodes responds to the Bloodline. The name Caesar Sikoa has now been trademarked by WWE. I like that one, actually. That's pretty good. And CM Punk is in Chicago to give an update on his comeback. Drew McIntyre quit WWE on Monday night, walked out of there before the Wyatt family, the Wyatt Six, laid waste to everybody, including Chad Gable, who is now out of the Money in the Bank qualifier coming up on Raw on Monday in Indianapolis. Tom, you think Drew McIntyre shows up and spoils CM Punk's good time in his hometown?
He should. It's pretty quick to quit and then show back up on the next show, however.
You would think.
But I don't really see any other way that you do this.
Do you look? Fighters heal faster than normal men. It's been exactly 6 months since he went out with this injury. It is well within the frame for somebody to recover from this between 6 and 9 months. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that he is. But when you factor in his age and all that sort of stuff, it would be a surprise to me if he's actually ready to come back. And I know there's been some buzzing that he's not ready to come back yet, but could you see him actually, whether he's ready or not, just saying that he is ready to pop the crowd? And even if Drew is not there, that could play into a storyline of Drew injuring CM Punk, who really is not ready to come back yet?
Yeah, and then takes him out for a longer period of time.
And then that takes you to SummerSlam, right?
You could also have somebody else take him out and set up a return program for him without Drew being the one to fight him right when he comes back. Although it has been reported that they're looking for, Punk and Drew at SummerSlam. So yeah, maybe tonight's the false comeback for CM Punk. Maybe he lets us know he's ready. He's ready to get in the ring. Maybe as early as Raw on Monday, but he gets attacked and taken out at the Rosemont.
When are we going to see Gunther? I need Gunther involved in something, beating somebody up.
He has a title match coming up at SummerSlam, whether we like it or not, as part of the conditions of winning the King of the Ring.
And when are they going to Germany? I guess that's going to be the heat up around that point when they go over there for, oh heavens, I forget what the pay-per-view is, but then you got that event coming up as well too, so maybe it's just out of sight, out of mind right now until they ready up at everything that they got going on for him coming up.
Yeah, WWE Bash in Berlin. August 31st. Interesting time to have a pay-per-view in Germany after Gunther gets his title shot a few weeks earlier at SummerSlam.
Is anything going to be going on that continent around that time?
Yeah, I think a little thing called the Olympics will be taking place a little bit prior to that, actually. They'll probably be finished by then.
You weren't
Is that what you were referring to?
AEW All In? Or, no? Not with that show on the 1st? Or around that time?
That as well. Yeah. Mike.
Yes. Yes.
I know it's a wrestling show.
Yeah.
But I hate to break it to you. The Olympics are a bigger deal than any of the wrestling shows. You said, is there something big going on in Europe around that time? Yeah, the biggest event
Eurovision's
is not All In. I'm sorry. It's the Olympics. Don't give me guff for saying that.
Is there wrestling, Tom?
It's not like I said
Tom?
not like I said KSW or Octagon MMA were happening.
Actually, there is Olympic wrestling, which is back, and the way it goddamn should be.
Yeah,
Sorry,
there's
pardon me.
judo as well. There's
Yes.
Greco-Roman wrestling. There's freestyle wrestling. There's women's freestyle wrestling. There's judo. There's taekwondo. A number of combat sports will be represented at the Olympics during that time frame in what is the biggest and most prestigious competition in our galaxy.
Unfortunately, NXT's Gigi Dolan is going to miss some of the competition. If she was involved in the competition, she's actually all set up now perfectly to just watch everything at her leisure this summer, as she is suffering from a reported torn ACL, according to Dave Meltzer in this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter. The 27-year-old Dolan has been out of action since March, and there is no timetable for her return. Dolan last wrestled on the March 12th edition of NXT, losing to Ariana Grace by disqualification. As a stipulation of Grace winning the match, she got to give Dolan a makeover, and then we saw how all of that played itself out on TV over the next couple of weeks. NXT is going to be holding house shows this weekend, as is WWE. The WWE's Super Show Summer Tour is Saturday at Grosinger Motors Arena in Bloomington, Illinois, and then heads to Kalamazoo, Michigan at the Wings Event Center, not the Woo-Wings Event Center. NXT is tonight at the Venice Community Center in Venice, Florida, and on Saturday they'll be at the Inglewood, California, the Inglewood Neighborhood Center in Orlando. Did you ever stomp around Orlando there? You're a big star in Orlando, right? Hall of Famer?
I am a alumni of the University of Central Florida. So, yeah, I stomped around Orlando way too much. For 10 years, I stomped around that place.
What'd you think? Were you happy to get out of there? What'd you think of Florida?
At the time, I'm a fan of it as well. I basically live in the same place, just in the desert. So I traded one tourist haven for another here in Las Vegas.
My brother.
A lot of transients, a lot of derelicts, a lot of scumbags. Both my kind of places.
I was going to say, sounds like the perfect place. Indianapolis, you've spent some time there. I don't know if you'd call that a scumbag place, but Monday Night Raw is going to be there. What's your biggest and best moment in the city of Indianapolis? Do you have one?
Yeah, it was actually where I defeated the Karate Man via Death Touch in Indianapolis during the COVID era at an AIW wrestling show. So,
guy has not recovered since. I don't even know where he's at right now. Mike Sempervive, Filthy Tom Lawler will be back to put a bow on this thing right after these messages. Wrestling Observer Live.
How long do I have to do this? Week after week, night after night, before you realize that I am the one who is transcending this business. Just because I don't go out there and say it doesn't mean it's not true. Do I really have to tell you every single night? Are you that thick? Too busy chasing people, blithering about goosebumps and levels and storytelling and cinema. Go see a fucking movie. Nicole Garcia thought about joining AEW when she saw what Mercedes did. You know why she didn't? Because then she saw me and realized she can't hold a pussy-scented candle to what I do. I am the one taking this company to new heights. And I don't even try to. I'm just being me, and it's the greatest thing I could ever be. And it's the greatest thing that could happen to all of you too, for every one of you who saw me all those years ago and thought, she has potential. You had absolutely no idea it was going to get this good, did you? Tomorrow morning, your headlines should read, "Holy fuck, was I wrong?" And Anthony, I promise you, no matter how many matches I win, no matter how many stories I finish, I will never call you into the ring to celebrate with me. Being timeless means I'm not on your watch. My success is my own, and we're damn lucky to be a part of it.
Thank you.
And if any of you have a single question after that, you're as stupid as you look.
Beautiful. Thank you for your time, Miss Storm.
That was wonderful.
Does anyone dare throw a question to
Question over here.
Storm?
Be able to follow that.
I got one, Garrett, Pace Magazine. I just want to know who in the company was like, Luther looks enough like Eric von Stroheim to play Tony's butler. All right, good call.
Otto Preminger.
Oh, Stroheim in Sunset Boulevard.
The Otto Preminger?
I don't know.
Yeah, you might be right.
I'll go to IMDb.
Any other questions?
Right here. Daryl with Cove Lakeland TV. I just have to ask, have you had a discussion with Tony Khan for Double or Nothing to finally get your match with Wendy Richter?
Ooh. Ooh.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to work out. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Question over here.
You may be timeless, but I don't think she is.
Angel at Wrestling News Co. Mariah May is ranked number 4. Are you at all thinking about what happens if she moves up to number 1 maybe later this year?
On the show, Mike Sempervive, Filthy Tom Lawler here to put a bow on this thing. You know, Filthy Taylor Tui ended up only fighting that one fight that he had. Lived an interesting life, though, in that he was a mentor to Akabono. When Akabono, who later on got into professional wrestling and in mixed martial arts over in Japan, when he began in sumo, he became a mentor to him. And then after getting his teeth kicked out and his orbital bone fractured in that first UFC fight, he ends up going to become an actor and was actually on CBS in the rehash of Hawaii Five-0, and Magnum P.I. had a recurring role on Hawaii Five-0. So amazing. And interestingly enough, you know, was part of the first lie of the UFC. You had to be killed. You had to be knocked unconscious. You had to say you quit. And the injury stoppage stopped that fight. First lie.
Yeah. If anybody out there has the time, and you should make the time, you should check out a few things featuring Taylor Tuli. One, his pig roast scene in the tremendous movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall. He plays backup for Jason Segel in that movie. And also, I watched a Sherdog interview with him and also a UFC 1 roundtable with a lot of the fighters from that time. And just to hear them talk about the unknown aspects, the chaos surrounding the early UFCs and MMA is great. And Taylor Tuli said some things in these interviews that I remember thinking myself, you know, wanting to go out and be the best fighter in the world, not knowing what's going to happen, but having the heart and determination and just the desire to make something of yourself in that cage. And hey, I'm not too proud to say it. I watched these interviews and I cried, you know, seeing these guys go away. Art Jimerson's no longer here as of recently. Taylor Tuli. I've never felt more mortal, Mike.
You know what, my man? Art Davey said if it wasn't for what Taylor Tui said before first UFC, it may have not have happened. Just an amazing, amazing story. Filthy, I thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you, Producer Daniel. Thank you, Producer John. And thank you all of you out there for watching and listening. We shall talk to you again after a while.